If you've ever wished you had a podcasting pro with nearly a decade of experience whispering growth secrets into your ear, that's exactly what you'll get when you tune into Podcast Growth Tools with me, your host, Kylie Chandler. This is the ultimate show for you if you're ready to grow your podcast audience, skyrocket engagement, and turn your show into a traffic-driving, list-building powerhouse. I've been in the podcasting world since 2015, helping creators like Amy Porterfield grow their shows to over 1 million downloads a month. My superpower? Breaking down proven podcast strategies and marketing techniques into step-by-step guidance you can actually implement without fluff, overwhelm, or guesswork. On this show, we're getting real about what actually moves the needle when it comes to growing your podcast audience and using it to boost your email list growth. From actionable insights and expert interviews to behind-the-scenes secrets, I'll help you turn your podcast into a traffic-driving, list-growing machine. Grab your earbuds, hit subscribe, and let's take your podcast to the next level. Hey friend. All right. So do you ever get to launch week and think, man, I wish I would have started warming up my audience months ago for this launch, for this offer? Or maybe you've got a killer digital course sitting inside your funnel, collecting cobwebs because you're just not driving consistent traffic to it. Listen, I've been there, and I'll tell you this. One really fun secret weapon for filling your course is actually using your podcast. So welcome to Podcast Growth Tools. I'm so glad you're here today because today I'm going to show you how to use your podcast as a true conversion tool. Whether you've got a live launch coming up or an evergreen funnel running behind the scenes, or you're just trying to fill your wait list with the right people, I'm breaking it down into pre-launch, launch, and then evergreen strategies so you can walk away with a clear plan by the end of this episode. Now, because we're going to cover so much today and you're going to have all of these ideas flowing, I wanted to put this into a really simple checklist, launch list for you so that you can just print it off or download it and you can reference it and remember and get those juices flowing at any time, right? So if you're prepping for a launch or if you're like, okay, I'm going to use these strategies next time, whatever it might be, you can go to this free resource and use it. So if you want to grab that, I'm going to call it a launch list because that's kind of fun. Go to podcastmarketinghub.com/launch and you can grab that launch list, say that 10 times fast, and just have it on hand. It's going to support you during a launch, prepping for a launch, all that good stuff with your evergreen. So again, podcastmarketinghub.com/launch, and you can get the free resource that goes hand in hand with this episode where I'm going to list out everything we talk about today so you have it in one stop. Okay, let's dive in. Now let's talk about pre-launch. If you are preparing for a live launch, this is the moment to get intentional about your podcast content. Now, when I worked for a previous entrepreneur, we would literally sit down anywhere from like 3 months to 6 weeks out ahead of our pre-launch to plan all of our content out. Like we'd have a specific meeting. If you don't have a team, doesn't matter. I highly recommend you still do this because the content that we planned out and created would act as Amy Porterfield says, an invisible bridge, encouraging people from where they are to where they need to be to say yes to your digital course. So again, this content, when you're sitting down, when you're planning it out, you need to be thinking, where is my audience and what information, what strategies, what mindset shifts do I need to give them to take them from where they are to where they need to be to say yes with excitement to my course when I'm ready to launch it. So you can start by using some questions like this. What do my audience members want to learn? What do they need to understand or believe before they join my course? Those become podcast episodes. Another one, what objections can I start to address and chip away at? Again, those become podcast episodes. So you create podcast episodes around those exact things. So a few smart pre-launch ideas might be tease the course casually. You can do baked in ads, right? You can say something like, if you want to be the first to know when my doors open for XYZ, join my waitlist at, and then whatever your URL is. Another amazing way to use this is to drive traffic to free resources or lead magnets that are stepping stones to your offer. Then you use those to build your email list and get leads into your funnel that are highly qualified, right? And the beautiful thing about planning out this content ahead is that when you do figure out the objections, the wants, the needs, the desires, the changes, and the mindset, all that stuff, what you can do is you have the podcast topic already. You get to create a resource that supports that podcast topic and also supports your person in taking the actions that they need so that when you launch, boom, they are ready. They've done the work. They've gone through the things that you've given them. So these all go very, very much hand in hand. And then the last thing is if you're doing a boot camp or a challenge, use episodes to share sneak peeks of what you'll be teaching and then invite people to sign up. Right? So it's all part of the flow. You might as well, if you're creating this content, use the content of the podcast to create a little bit of engagement, a little bit of interest and intrigue to get people into your boot camp and challenge. And then when people are in your boot camp and in your challenge, be sure that you are feeding them your podcast episodes. This is a great, great way, especially if you have cold traffic in your boot camp or people who are fairly new to who you are. Giving them episodes to binge during their time in the boot camp or challenge not only increases the perceived value, but it also helps them to start to create really strong relationships with you. It nurtures them so they feel like they know you when you go to ask them to join your digital course. So, one more thing that I always want to remind you and people is transformation builds trust. So, the stories of transformation build trust. What does that mean? It means pepper in student success stories. So, as much as you can on your podcast, YouTube videos, you can interview your students. Like that's an amazing way. And then you can use those as long form content that you're using leading up to opening your digital course. Or you can just share their stories. If you have a case study or a testimonial that you've gotten from them, you can summarize it, or you can create one podcast episode where you're teaching something, but then you're using those success stories as well. So be sure you're doing that as much as you can. All right, next up, let's talk about launch week. Now your course doors are open. It's exciting. It's go time. You've done the work. You did the podcast episodes. It's rocking. Here's how to use your podcast to really support your live launch. If you are hosting a masterclass or a workshop, I'd recommend taking the recording, trim out the pitch section. Maybe if there's like a Q&A section, that can maybe be left in. But ideally, also, if you are engaging with the like your masterclass audience, you can take those segments out as well and then publish it as a time sensitive episode. So let it live for about 48 to 72 hours and include a clear CTA directing listeners to your sales page. Okay, a couple things on this. One, I recommend doing 48 to 72 hours leading up to like either the day of course close or the day before so that they still have time to get into your digital course. Obviously, you don't want it going beyond that. So another way I really love using a podcast to support live launch is creating 3 or 4 short episodes addressing the top objections, each backed by a real transformational story. So here's what I mean. So basically, if you're launching, I would imagine and I hope that you know the objections that your audience is going to bring to you, whether it's money, time, am I ready, whatever it might be. You are going to deep dive to create an episode that kind of coaches them through that objection. And a good way to do this is if you have previous students who came in with that same objection, but committed and got some sort of results, tie those together in an episode. You could also do where you're talking and then maybe you get like a 5-minute audio clip from that student and they tell their story. That's a really powerful way. So you can play around and have fun with this. But I've seen this work really well. And also, when you start to talk to people and they're saying, oh, I don't know if I can financially do it or whatever, you can say, oh, I just released a podcast episode diving deeper into this. What I would really love is if you take a listen and then let's hop on a call tomorrow after you've listened to it and we can chat through it more. So that's a really great way to work through those as well. And then lastly, I'm going back to testimonials. When your card is open, be asking yourself how you can use case studies, testimonials as much as possible on your podcast, because you want the social proof to speak for itself. And so the way you can also do that on your podcast is by sharing student audio clips in your intros. So maybe you do an objections episode, and at the very, very beginning, you insert a very short audio of a student who is just sharing some amazing social proof. So maybe they say, like, I grew my list by 1,000 people in 14 days after joining XYZ course. I couldn't thank so and so enough, or whatever, like something really short and sweet, but it's powerful because it's the first thing they hear, and you're using your students to do the selling for you. So it's very, very cool. So just remember, like, this phase is all about meeting your listeners exactly where they are, on the go, in their ears, already tuned in, right? So if they're thinking about joining, if they're, just found you or whatever it might be, you're using this to nurture and show them all the social proof you can, all the testimonials, and then get them into your course. Okay, so the next piece I want to talk to you about is Evergreen. So let's say your course is Evergreen, meaning that it is always available. You don't necessarily do like a big cart open type of thing, right? It's always open. You're always driving traffic to it. It's an ongoing funnel. Amazing. Your podcast can support with this too, big time. So here's how. I recommend every 6 to 8 episode, or honestly, whatever rhythm feels really natural to you, you create an episode that acts as your bridge to your Evergreen course. So you talk about a topic that directly relates to what your audience needs to understand or experience before they join, right? So same concept, just a little bit different. Remember, of course, use transformational stories as well. Highlight wins from your students on an ongoing basis. This can be mini interviews, shout outs, full episodes. I mean, you can do the same thing where you get a clip, a very short and sweet clip from somebody who says, I changed my hormone panel in 1 month after working with so and so's and implementing her strategies or whatever it might be. And you just put that at the very front of your episode. I mean, you can leave them there. It's an evergreen thing. You can totally leave them there. You can do them as dynamic, whatever, things like that. But that is a really powerful way to just always be having social proof available for people who are finding you and listening. Another great way is to use dynamic ads to insert fresh, timely promos for your freebies or your evergreen masterclasses that feed into your funnel, right? So test different versions out, swap them out quarterly, find out what works. But yeah, play around with different things that you're saying, different things that you're highlighting. Maybe there's bonuses that you really want to lay heavy on 1 month, or maybe you're playing around with doing like a timely bonus for this month. If they sign up for the Evergreen course this month, they get this bonus. So you can be playing around with that. You can also just be playing around with different ways that you pitch it and seeing which dynamic ad is driving traffic. I'm all about testing. You know that. If you've listened, you know that. Another great way is to build out free resources that go hand in hand with your episode. I've said this a million times. I've already talked about it. And once they download it, I need to back up. So it not only goes hand in hand with your episode, but this episode also goes hand in hand with your Evergreen course. Because then once they download that freebie, you move them into a nurture sequence. So you create an intentional nurture sequence, and that eventually leads them to offer your Evergreen course and builds them up so that they are ready to buy it when you pitch it to them in that nurture sequence. All right, I have a bonus idea for you. What you could do is take a short clip from inside your course, just a short teaching moment or a snippet from live coaching or whatever, and you can turn it into a podcast teaser. Then you can say something like, I'm not going to let you listen to the full thing, but if you want more of this, you can get the full training inside my XYZ course, my XYZ membership, whatever. But it's a great way to tease them with a little bit of content, make sure it's super valuable, and then that drives them into the course. Okay, so I have some final thoughts here. Podcasting and digital courses are not two separate worlds. Like, you have the power to make them blend together so cohesively. Your podcast is honestly one of the most powerful tools you have for building trust, creating desire, nurturing, and at the end of the day, driving sales. So I want you to start thinking of your podcast as an extension of your sales process. If you want help mapping all this out, like I said, I've created a free resource that goes hand in hand with this, just so that you have it all in one spot. And you can grab that at podcastmarketinghub.com/launch. And you can just use it to really flesh out and understand what we talked about, no matter where you are, whether you're planning it, whether you're in the middle and you want to implement some of these quickly, or whether you're working on amplifying your evergreen offer and you want to put these into action. So thank you so much for being here. Again, that's podcastmarketinghub.com/launch. If you could, I would really love if you could leave a rating, review, share this with a friend. And I can't wait to give you more content. So I'm always here to hear what you would love to hear. And I so appreciate you.